All right. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Tracking's on. Here we go. Let us open my script and we'll get started. I'm a little low. All right. Let me turn my mic up. How's that? Okay. We're not doing BGM today, just in case I want to, just in case I want to edit this down into a video someday. So it is bring your own BGM day. So I'm gonna put on lo-fi in my own ears, but you guys aren't gonna hear it. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Grabbing my script. Hope everyone is having a good day. We're gonna talk about something a little serious today. So disclaimer, please be respectful to everyone in chat. We might have different views on this topic, and it's okay for you to voice your different views as long as you remain respectful. Okay? All right, I'm gonna start with my script that includes a disclaimer. So here we go. Hey, a Bat Bunch, welcome to Yammer Time. Today's episode of Yammer Time is definitely going to be a touchy subject. A lot of different people have different kinds of views on this, so feel free to share yours, just share it respectfully. I will personally disclose that my bias on romantic parasocialism is from a Christian perspective, but even so, we aren't going to be delving into the moral aspect of romantic parasocialism today. I really just want to focus this discussion on the health aspect for Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I know that even though I'm against this content being made and consumed, it will always be made and consumed throughout all of human history. This is not exclusive to VTubers, and it is not exclusive to this day and age. It's part of life on Earth. So, I'm not going to be focusing on pointing fingers about the production of romantic parasocial content, who's responsible for it, anything like that. Instead, today we are just going to focus more on the mental health aspects of consuming romantic parasocial content, and a little bit about what one might be able to do to improve their own mental health surrounding this topic. Again, disclaimer, this is not a witch hunt or call-out video. Do not use this episode to harass anyone, regardless of what kind of content they make. That is not what I'm setting out to do today. The way I see it, romantic parasocial content is kind of like fast food. We can have a conversation around why it isn't healthy without blaming anyone for its existence. My goal today is to encourage my audience to make good choices for themselves and their health at the end of the day. Fast food can and always will exist, but we as individuals can choose whether we eat healthy or not. So yeah, that is kind of my preamble here. Let me take a sip of tea. Now, I did make a video in I think 2022, maybe early 2023, about romantic parasocialism. When I kind of first discovered what it was, we're gonna be watching a little bit of clips about about that, because I kind of want to display how my feelings towards romantic parasocialism have evolved and matured in some ways. So let's hop on over to gaming, and we're going to see what little Yam had to say on this. Baby Yam. All right. I'm gonna go to gaming. All right. So let me pause. Oh, no. That's not the right video. Let me pause my BGM on my end, even though you guys don't have any. Okay. And then I'm gonna go over to my video. We're not gonna watch the whole thing. It's 45 minutes. You can watch the whole thing if you want. It is called Why You'll Never See Me in Hololive or Niji Sanji. I was really good at the dramatic titles. Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit of Yamception, you are correct. Let me just... Let's Alt to hide the top of the screen. Yeah. Thank you, Kenny Suin. Welcome on in. Okay. This video was good though. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm going to make it more nuanced. I have timestamps. So I still stand by 99% of this video. But I really want to showcase how some things I didn't fully understand yet. Alright, here we go. Alright, so it starts with a bunch of VTuber anecdotes about celebrity VTubers dealing with their parasocial audience. It talks about me wanting to avoid drama but making this video anyway. Okay, now we get into the meat and potatoes. Okay, first point. Agencies rely on parasocial relationships. I still stand by this as someone who worked at a VTuber agency. I can tell you, the definition of parasocial relationship being one-sided here. We're not talking about romantic parasocial relationships yet. You can be a successful agency VTuber and VTuber in general without garnering romantic parasocial relationships. However, I do see romantic parasocial relationships to be lucrative and to be kind of like a catalyst of audience growth. But it does, like, you know, it's a buff, but it comes with debuffs. Exactly, Kenny Sue. Thank you. So let's hear what Baby Yam had to say. Oh, you can't hear her yet. Let's try that again. Alright, here we go. My worst nightmare. Let me break it down further. Agencies rely on parasocial relationships. It appears to me from an outside perspective that agencies like Hololive and Niji Sanji do not shy away from the most lucrative, yet most dangerous parts of their fan base, the gachikois. That being a Japanese term that refers to a fan who is in love with an idol or actor. I wouldn't say this is the case for every agency, but essentially, the top VTuber agencies built their success off the backs of parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are common in the entertainment industry and vary in severity depending on the type. However, a lot of these agency-affiliated creators tend to garner parasocial relationships of the romantic nature, which is in my opinion the most toxic type, but also the most lucrative type of parasocial relationship. The most profitable donors in a VTuber's audience are the fans who are so deep in their parasocial romantic fantasies that they equate their donations to the streamer as a show of their love. The streamer then reading their messages or thanking them is confirmation in their head that the streamer loves them back in some form. These top donors are presumably using their favorite creator's stream as a replacement for a lack of romantic partner in their own life. Okay, Baby Yam was cooking. She was cooking with gas. I will say, I feel like, although I agree with past Yam, I do feel like, I was a little too blamey. And a little too dramatic. And the reason being is I was making this video from the perspective of someone who is getting harassed, I'm just gonna say sexually harassed, pretty much every time I went live. So you can see that I was kind of dehumanizing the viewers. Which is why I want to specifically talk about the health of the viewers today. I do not continue to, like, hold this, like, blame game attitude anymore. Though, of course, you know, when you're the victim of sexual harassment, and YouTube's gonna demonetize me, but I'm not gonna, like, harassment. I'm not gonna do that. We're having a serious conversation. When you're the victim, you feel like you need to have a sort of scapegoat. You know? As such, you can tell that I was making this from a place of hurt. And now I really don't blame consumers of romantic parasocial content as much, and I also don't want to other them nearly as much. I don't find them, like, there's definitely, like, a extremist view here, that if you consume romantic parasocial content, you're doing it because you have no one else in your life. That was way too, like, not only too generalized, but also too extreme. I feel like a lot of people consume parasocial romantic content, which, like I defined in the video, is, you know, romantic content meant to invoke feelings, of one-sided romance, essentially. So we are talking about girlfriend experience, boyfriend experience, yeah, that kind of thing. As well as just, like, teasing the audience about, like, oh, how do I say this without, like, getting clipped out of context? I care about you a lot, you guys, like, there's a slippery slope here, right? There's a slider. But yeah. I think now I understand a lot more the why behind why romantic parasocial content is how popular it is, and why demonizing the people who consume it isn't necessarily the way to go. Yeah, like Kenisu said, there's a lot of reasons why someone would find comfort in romantic parasocial content. Again, like the comforting aspect, the support aspect. It's not just like, oh, they're a lonely loser. I'm so sorry that I was, like, kind of disgusted with anyone who would find themselves consuming this content back then. I do just want to hug my past self and tell her it's gonna be okay, because you can tell from this video I was hurt. Like, I was really hurt. So now I would definitely say it's not just for people who are, like, lacking romance in their own lives. I would say that, you know, this was pre-NDA, yes. This was before I worked in agencies and kind of understood the business model as well. The next part of this is actually completely inaccurate. But I would say that now I understand people who consume romantic parasocial content to be from both genders, to not necessarily be single, and it's not because they're lacking something in their own lives all the time. It could be that they're lacking something in their own lives, and that's not necessarily their fault. That is something I have learned. And I've grown. So I just wanted to preface that and say, like, this is, thank you everyone for following. Yeah. Let's see. First question. Did you seek advice of a psychologist friend to discuss about the mental health aspect, or is this from your own experience? It's both. My boyfriend is studying to be a therapist, and we had a discussion about this from his perspective, and also my own perspective. So I will also say having a boyfriend and having a boyfriend studying psychology in hopes of becoming a therapist has definitely helped me have a more well-rounded perspective on this, as well as working with VTubers who do make romantic parasocial content as my clients. I have managed 4 VTubers who do GFE. So now I have a much more well-rounded perspective on this. And I definitely don't agree with playing the blame game anymore. Thank you, Spidey. Thank you for the Bat Bunch membership. Playing the blame game is not only, like, harmful, but it also makes people double down. And the way I phrased things here, I would say, comes across as judgmental. And it actually, if someone was in a romantic parasocial relationship here, an unhealthy romantic parasocial relationship, I would say that they probably would have clicked off the video at this point because they were feeling judged. So, although Baby Yam is saying a lot of the right things, I think she just has, like, a really black and white view on how this works and doesn't fully understand the reasons behind why someone would seek out romantic parasocialism. So, let's continue. This can, of course, also happen to creators who show themselves on camera as well, but with VTubers, there's another layer to it. This is just my speculation, but I believe this behavior is compounded by waifu and idol culture. I won't go too much into detail. Okay, you guys know what waifus and idols are, right? We can skip a little. Waifu and idol culture, I would say the most important part of this is that they have polished image. They hide their faults and they market themselves to be approachable and attractive. So that's really what I was getting here, is VTubers market themselves as approachable, available, attractive. That's all we really need to know going forward. Now I'm gonna skip this big section here, and the reason being is I feel like I was only half right. But we're gonna just touch on what I was trying to say here. So I had this, like, idea before I was ever in a VTuber agency, guys, that, this is, like, the formula to get into a VTuber agency, because they're only looking for romantic parasocialism. I only agree with about half of this now. Some of this is just regular VTuber tropes, and it has very little to do with romantic parasocialism. And if someone adopts these traits, they're really just trying to make themselves more marketable in a niche, not necessarily romantically marketable, if that makes sense. So, number 1, I claimed a neat introvert gremlin of the internet. You can just tell I was kind of mashing terms that I heard on Twitter before. I didn't exactly understand what a neat was. And the reason a lot of VTubers are introvert gremlins of the internet is because that is the environment they felt comfortable socializing in. A lot of VTubers become VTubers because they feel like they cannot socialize with the outside world, and it has nothing to do with romantic parasocialism. Now, can it be used in a sense to make someone more relatable to an audience member who is feeling lonely? Yes, because they can emotionally connect with the audience by saying, I have experienced exactly what you're experiencing. Is that insidious in any way? No. It is not insidious to relate to your audience emotionally. Heck, half of Yammer Time is just me relating to how hard it is to be a creator. Yes. So, it's not some sort of secret code. I was being way too dramatic. That's something I would say. Rewatching my old videos just makes me feel like, wow, I was so dramatic. Okay, plays into existing anime tropes. Again, that's regular marketing. Most of the time, I would say it can be used in romantic parasocial content. Because let's say you add the tsundere aspect or the yandere aspect to your GFE, that can make your GFE more marketable, but you can also just be playing an anime character with a trope and it not count as romantic parasocial content. So again, I'm painting too broad of brushstrokes without totally explaining the nuance here. So I'm adding nuance to my old video here. Yeah, that's just being anime character on the internet. That can be totally, like, romantic parasocial free. Weebs with relatable taste to guys. I can't defend this one. This is just wrong. It's funny because I didn't realize, but I am a weeb with relatable taste to guys. So I'm throwing this point out entirely. Yeah. 4, flirty yet forever single. Now, this is one I can say is a symptom of romantic parasocial content, and it actually harms both genders. So, VTubers are expected to at least play along with flirtatious behavior in certain contexts, and it also is highly recommended, if not completely restricted, for a lot of agency VTubers to stay single. At least their character remains single. A lot of them do have partners outside of their VTuber character, and unfortunately, it can put strain on relationships. Because, let's say the VTuber partner in the relationship can't talk about their real life partner, but work is very demanding. It can make the partner of the VTuber feel very neglected, and almost like the relationship is a taboo. So it can be really strenuous on relationships because the VTuber is often expected to spend holidays with their audience instead of their partner. Some partners can totally like be cool with it. Really depends on the relationship. I think the best thing I did for myself was disclose Leo, my boyfriend, early, because it's actually added a lot to my enjoyment of VTubing, getting to share it with my partner. So I would say that number 4, flirty yet forever single, is detrimental to kind of everyone involved. When it comes out, like, that your favorite VTuber had a partner, you're always gonna see some gotchikois in their audience get really, really upset. Like, when Urha Rushia had the expose, and found out that she was married, there's footage of men breaking down in Twitter space, just sobbing their eyes out. Because to them, it really feels like they're finding out that they're the other man. Like, it feels like an affair. Yeah. So, I would say, number 4 is something I stand by. Yeah. It also makes anime/weeb sound like it only belongs to guys. Yeah, I don't know what I was on with number 3. 3 is totally, like, I throw that out. Yeah. Okay, so number 5, accidentally yabai. This is totally true. As someone who has been, agency VTuber, manager before, the quote-unquote accidentally yabai is playing a character. And it can be used to attract a romantically parasocial audience. Funny fact about 5 and 6, though, is I am such a innocent-oriented adult that I had no clue at this time that some adults just like to make adult jokes, and they genuinely find them funny, and it's not just for the views. It can be used in clip farming, but some adults genuinely enjoy adult jokes. Like, I couldn't wire my neurons to understand that at this time, which makes sense because nothing's farther than me, like, internally. Voice extremes. What I meant was voice acting, but I didn't have the capacity to articulate what I meant. This is true in VTuber agencies, that most of them are putting on a character voice. Is it a tool in romantic parasocialism? Yes, because it can make a VTuber appear more attractive to their audience. Is it necessarily part of romantic parasocialism? No. So some of these I really wish that I had more nuance in this conversation, saying these are things that might contribute to romantic parasocialism, instead of calling this like a formula that I figured out the code, guys. That's silly. Tolerates or encourages objectification. Now this is the hard part. On the, VTuber side, I would say garnering romantic parasocialism means that you have to then tolerate and or encourage the objectification to continue your career. And that can be really detrimental to both the VTuber and the audience. When you have, let's say when you're an audience member and we're just going to use a woman as the VTuber and a man as the audience member, just because that's more common, but I'm not saying that it's not ever the other way around. If you are a young man in a VTuber's chat, and they are encouraging the objectification of their VTuber model of themselves, and you're seeing the masses then go to objectify the character on screen, you are more inclined to then begin participating in objectification culture. And that can be detrimental for the woman on screen because she feels like that's expected of her. And it can be detrimental to the man in chat, because it starts a pattern that can be hard to then undo, and can make adjustment into the real world a little bit harder, especially having healthy relationships with the opposite sex in the future. So, especially young men. I'm gonna say, like, if you're a 16-year-old, I know you shouldn't be in chat of, like, Hosho Marine when you're 16, but I'm just gonna say there are 16-year-olds in these chats, and having this, like, tolerance or even encouraging objectification can be detrimental to these young men who are forming their social skills. It can be detrimental to their future of having normal interactions with the opposite sex. Okay, number 9, stays out of politics and controversy. Well, guess what? I'm breaking number 9 right now. Ha ha ha. But this is true. It has nothing to do with romantic parasocialism, but this is true of agency VTubers. They're expected to stay out of politics and controversy. This is not a bad thing. For some reason, I didn't connect the dots, that most people at their jobs need to stay out of politics and controversy in order to stay professional. That's just part of, sorry about the dog, yeah. Gunter, bud. Hey, Gunter. No bark. Okay. That's just part of, you know, having a job and being professional. And survive the online sphere without garnering haters from either side of the political spectrum. Yeah. It's just good to stay out of politics and controversy as an internet talent, though I will say, if you're doing this as a hobby, I see no reason to. However, if you want to join an agency someday, I do recommend you stay out of politics and controversy, and that's not a bad thing, and it has nothing to do with romantic parasocialism. I think in my head at this point, I was like forgetting that the topic was only romantic parasocialism, and I was just talking about how VTubers market themselves. So how many do I stand by out of these? I would really just say, like, not 1. 2 is like a half point with nuance. 3, throw that one out. 4 is the 1 point I really still stand by. 5 and 6 are, again, half points with nuance. 7, again, a half point with nuance. 8, that's another point that I stand by. 9, throw it out. So, like, I would say that half of this list still holds up. Less than half, actually. And if you really want to know, like, if you really want to be able to spot romantic parasocialism in an audience, I would say the 8 and the 4 are the most important. And then, like, maybe looking for 2, 5, 6, 7 in some cases. But I would say the only really detrimental points are the 4 and the 8. So we're definitely adding nuance. Okay. Next point. Let's listen to Baby Yam again. This video, I personally am not comfortable with adding these traits to my existing persona. And that's okay! I'm honestly uncomfortable with the idea of altering my own on-stream personality to make myself more of the ideal waifu so that I can rake in more super chats. That's okay, Baby Yam. But you don't need to judge others. You don't need to judge others who play a tsundere on the internet to do that. She's hurting. She's hurting. Head pats, okay? One could argue that it's completely the talent's choice on whether to play into the gachikoi fantasy or not, But this is not exactly the case. It's practically in the job description of an agency VTuber. Even if I refuse to do anything to pander to parasocial relationships myself, even if I was clear as day with my fans from the beginning about my stance on the culture, my company would be actively working against those efforts. Companies like Hololive and Nijisanji actively catered to the parasocial relationships, namely through merchandising and voice packs, because, wow, that's a lot of wedding and bedding. We're gonna get to the wedding and bedding stuff. So I was kind of right here and I was kind of wrong here. Let's break down the nuance now that I've had agency jobs. Do agencies require you to have romantic parasocial themed merchandising and events? I'm gonna say yes. So basically, the way I see it is, I got to talk to Rin Penrose at Offkai. And one thing that Rin Penrose said about working in an agency was she had to get really creative with how she participated in voice packs, because voice pack participation was mandatory, but she did not want to garner romantic parasocialism with her audience. So it is kind of mandatory. I am, like, Baby Yam was right in that sense. You do have to participate in swimsuit events, bridal events. If your generation is doing something, you have to do it. Because you don't want to be the odd man out, the buzzkill of your generation. There's a lot of pressure to compromise and do romantic parasocial content. Now, would I say that it is impossible to join an agency without making romantic parasocial content? Not now, but when I made this video, I would say it was, because we really didn't have many choices in terms of agencies. There's a lot more agencies now. And I would say if you are interested in joining an agency and you're getting to the second round of interviews, I would tell them either then or before you sign the contract, hey, it's against my values to make romantic parasocial content. Are you guys, like, how would we handle this? How would we handle this as a team to avoid it? Yeah. That's the facts of any agency. Don't like it, walk away quickly. Yeah. So, I would say I was right in 90% of cases that I have seen. You are expected to play into romantic parasocial fantasies when you are part of an agency, even if you don't do it on your own stream. However, you can either do what Rin Penrose did and be really creative with it, like, okay, if I'm doing a sleepover voice pack, I'm gonna make it all about blahage, you know? That kind of thing. So, I would say, you know, some people can get away with it. Some agencies are cool with it. But as a rule of thumb, it would be hard to join an agency and do well in an agency without at least being willing to participate in romantic parasocial events. And I think that is still a shame. I still stand by the fact that I feel like that's a shame. Okay. Also, the pandering is found even in agency-wide events that aren't really optional. I do believe that talents have a say in their individual merchandise releases.
That is true.
But with agency-wide events, there is most likely little to be done to opt out.
Yes.
I don't think Hololive would be cool with letting one talent opt out of the Hololive summer event when everyone else is supposed to be in a music video together.
That is based on a real example. Hoshimachi Suisei was and seems to be uncomfortable Wow, grammaring. Suisei seems to be uncomfortable with Hololive Summer, and she participates as little as possible. But, you know, it's her choice, like, to continue to stay in Hololive, and I no longer feel like, oh, is it really the talent's choice? I will say it's the talent willing to make a compromise for the career they like. My only concern is when, like Psych Nurse said, my only concern is when agencies are signing on really young girls and guys, really young people who don't fully understand the weight of this content, and they're like, oh, all I have to do is be willing to make this content, and my dreams will come true and I don't have to get a real job. How many VTubers have I ran into that have that mentality? I've ran into a lot, and I really hope that these VTubers don't regret that in the future. Yeah. So I would say it's the talent's choice, but pressures are there. And pressures can definitely influence people. Yeah. Yeah, it can be trapping if they decide to back out. Yeah, that too. Okay, so then I go into all these examples of how romantic parasocialism was detrimental to a VTuber. I'll just talk about it really quick. Yozora Mel, she was stalked. Mano Aloe, she was considered dangerous for the other pure girls, so she basically got harassed out of Hololive. Uruha Rushia, now this is an old video, so this is a very incomplete version of the Uruha Rushia story. Kalaya P. Mori, just a lot of, like, harassment of Callie because she doesn't take as much and she's not as, like, pure and innocent, you know? Vox Akuma, he does boyfriend experience, and as a result, the girls around him get harassed. Oro Crony, she got harassed for playing with her male coworkers. Okay, consequences. Yeah. When she returned, she stood her ground, and this time Hololive backed her up in a statement. The reason I bring all these stories up isn't to police what kind of content is acceptable to make and profit from. The reason I bring these instances up is to show that despite being good for business, catering to gachikois is dangerous, not only for the talent facilitating the parasociality, but for all the talents around them as well. Though I didn't even mention, like, notice this, like, lack of mentioning how detrimental it is to the audience. I wasn't even thinking about the audience at this point. I was only thinking about the VTubers. And I had no, like, sense that there's VTubers who want to do this, whether they're in an agency or not. I had no sense of, like, people, like, enjoying making romantic parasocial content. I had this, like, narrative in my head that companies find money in this, therefore VTubers who join companies have to do this. I had no semblance of the idea that maybe people do this of their own volition, and I definitely had no sympathy for the audience at this point. So that is why we are making an update, because we're gonna talk specifically about the audience sympathy today. But yeah, let's see. Let's see if there was anything else from this video. I say that, oh, VTuber culture comes from the corporate side, so indies can't escape this expectation of romantic parasocialism. I still believe this to be true. However, I would say the caveat is it just means you have to work harder and set better boundaries and ban anyone who's making you uncomfortable, and eventually you will find your audience who supports you and your comfort level. At this point, I had an audience who was making me very uncomfortable, and I couldn't figure out why. I go into talking about how I was harassed and how I have, like, really bad experience with gachikois. But then I was like, oh, but I'm gonna stay a VTuber because I really, really love VTubers and the potential of the medium. The last thing I want to visit is the takeaway.
And base. Though I was incredibly negative in this video, I do not hate these companies or creators. I believe there's more nuance than whole life bad and I hate these creators. While researching for this video, I saw a lot of polarized content on VTubers and parasocial relationships from people who genuinely hate VTubers just for existing. I hope that I was able to offer a more balanced perspective on the matter. I'm actually
This was my idea of a more balanced perspective back then, and now I feel like it's way too black and white, so, yeah. I tried my best to be, like, nuanced. However, there was a whole perspective of people that I wasn't completely, taking into account. So, yeah.
Actually a big fan of a handful of talents within Hololive and Nichi-sanji. Just
That's
because
true.
I wouldn't personally participate in the activities they do doesn't mean I have to boycott them. In fact,
True.
I plan on making more and more design videos celebrating these talents and the hard work that goes into an agency VTuber persona. After all types of anime genres exist and can become successful. I can personally stay in my lane of anime I like and ignore the rest.
Good
I
for
believe
you,
we can all
baby
do
Yam.
the same with VTubers and just watch the creators that we like the content of and respectfully avoid watching the rest.
I still stand by that. After this, I don't want anyone, like, boycotting or harassing others for their choices of content, whether it's what they create, what they consume. Really, I just want to discuss, like, the audience side and the health aspect of it. But I did want to, like, go over this video just to show a little bit of where I used to come from.
To the VTubers who want to continue with these activities that appeal to a gachikoi demographic, please educate yourself and understand the risks involved. I see a lot of trends like this one on Twitter floating around, and I get a little concerned. Just know what you're getting into. Set boundaries with your fans from day one and don't budge on what your limits are.
I wouldn't take my own advice for another year, just by the way. I told people to set boundaries, but I was not setting boundaries well. But I stand by that. Yeah, if you're doing, like, romantic parasocial content, please make sure you know what you're getting into, know the potential risks, and understand the health aspect of it for yourself and your audience.
And if you're a VTuber fan, always read individual VTubers' chat rules and respect their boundaries. Never assume everyone is okay with the popular VTuber chat culture.
Aw,
Thank
baby,
you for sticking with me to the end of this darker video. I don't plan on this type of thing to be my regular content. In fact, I'm rather relieved to finally have this off my chest so that I can continue to make the lighthearted stuff about VTuber design again. As always, take care, Bat Bunch.
We're maidenless. You guys, you're gonna be just fine. With such a pure, sweet, loving heart that you guys have, you beautiful chickens, y'all are gonna be fine. Well, Mary Sue say that's not gonna happen. Telling you now that's not gonna happen, I'm sorry. crushing your dreams, but I think Suicide Senpai would crush it herself. No, something like that shouldn't, and I know that you just, I think you don't take it that seriously anyway, but I think there are some people who take this kind of stuff so serious that it holds them back from actually living their life and creating real relationships, or neglecting real relationships, or just not like thinking about them at all anymore. Like when it gets to a really bad level of being intoxicated, or I don't know what I should call it. I'm not sure if there's anyone here who feels like that could be them. I would like to assume that at least 99% of you guys are not that way. While you still love me very much, which is understandable because I love you too. But I want you guys to become happy in the future. Everyone deserves happiness in life, and whatever brings you happiness, it doesn't need to be love. I mean, some people maybe don't need that in their life. Maybe some people need other things, but I just don't want people to be held back by something like that, and like missing out on things in real life and forgetting how it feels to have like these kind of things happen to them in real life in the first place. Because after all of that seat, I think it's understandable that a lot of us are like so locked up at home and just haven't had much interactions and all that for like possibly 2 years at this point. And maybe you are at a point where you feel like, I've made it for 2 years. You know what? I'll never go outside anymore. The virtual life is the better life. I hope that if someone feels like that, you can break out of your shell again at some point and enjoy what life is really about. As much as I appreciate you guys being in here always, at any time, there's so many beautiful places outside to visit, so many fun things to do, in some places, and friendship is what life is truly about. Yeah.
I put this at the end of the video, not fully understanding just how true this is. Like, oh man. Kiara basically summed it up for me. I had Kiara kind of talk to the audience because I didn't know how to talk to the audience. Because I was still kind of in my judgmental phase because I was hurting from my own audience. Well, are they really my audience if they were harassing me? But my own harassers. But Kiara basically summed it up, guys. If your consumption of VTubers or any kind of media is getting in the way of your real life, it's unhealthy. But she said it in such a sweet way that wasn't condescending and not judgmental. And I wish I could do that. I mean, she had a lot more experience with audience and audience management than I did at that time. Yeah. You probably had a few good people watching you among all the bad. Exactly. I don't even consider them my audience anymore. I would say my harassers. Yeah. I would say we're gonna watch a video that better describes the feeling. But I would say that when she says, like, I just don't want your enjoyment of my content to bar you from going outside and experiencing the world and having your own relationships, what a healthy way to handle this. What a nice and caring way to handle this. Which is kind of funny because in my own video, I feel like I did not handle things nicely, at least towards the audience. I was very sympathetic towards the VTubers, but not so much towards the audience. And today we're gonna talk more about the audience. So yeah, that is kind of my background with how I've handled romantic parasocialism in the past. I will say I had no men my age in my life at that point. Never, had a deep boyfriend relationship before that. And as a result, I didn't really understand the perspective fully. I didn't understand the perspective of someone who would make romantic parasocial content, and I also didn't understand the perspective of someone who consumes it. So now that I have sort of gotten more experience in this world, matured a bit, and I have healed from my past hurts, we can delve into this with a more mature lens. So, that's kind of like my thoughts on my old parasocial video. Even if it wasn't a perfect video, it said a lot of things that other creators weren't highlighting. Yes, and I definitely still stand by a lot of the video. I think it's just a little outdated. I'm honestly thinking of editing this down into its own discussion again, just so that people can have another video to that's more nuanced. But really what it comes down to is although I'm no longer blaming the audience members for getting into it, and I'm not necessarily even blaming the VTubers for getting into it, we do have to address the health issues that come with it. Because that's what I really should have focused on from the get-go. It's not healthy to throw yourself into a romantic parasocial relationship of any sort, honestly. Yeah, there were good ideas in this video. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as an update, I would like to talk more about the health issues. And let's go back to my script here. Yeah. Here was my notes on my own video. It's a little too blamey. I would like to focus on why it's unhealthy rather than pointing fingers. Yeah. Here, you can tell I was really hurting and kind of grieving the fact that the internet isn't innocent. And upon receiving my first few bouts of harassment, I really needed an outlet for those feelings. I needed to come to terms with the fact that by following too closely to Hololive's mannerisms and marketing, I put myself in a situation where I had gained an audience of primarily men who are used to romantic parasocialism in their VTubers, and I had no clue what was going on. I was basically too innocent to realize what I was doing. So yeah. This was also a different time era, I should say that. This was a different time era where there were less agencies available, and all the English VTubers were more or less following the Japanese idol version of VTubing, and there was no real alternative. Now, I would say that VTubers have much more assimilated into regular creator culture, but at this time, that wasn't really a thing. So, I would say that this is also kind of that era. What I really needed to do was set better boundaries, ban people, and gain a bit of acceptance on how the internet is. Really, it was the boundaries. It's hard to, like, steer the ship in the right direction. You're gonna have some men overboard, but I needed to bite the bullet. I needed to say enough is enough. I needed to set good boundaries, and I needed to cut people. And once I did that, it got a lot easier. So just be really firm if you find yourself in that same boat. I will say, however, although I have accepted the state of the internet, I just want to say that it doesn't necessarily mean the state of the internet is healthy. Yeah. I disagree. 2023, there was a lot of streamers who didn't play into that. The difference was that they weren't the most popular streamers, it was an expectation, at least for the people in my circles. And I was a HoloLive adjacent creator. Because I was making videos on HoloLive still. And I started my career basically copying the HoloLive formula with my own channel. And so I would say there was an expectation in the circle I was creating in to have romantic parasocial content. Even figuring out your boundaries can be hard. I'm almost 3 years into streaming and I'm still adjusting those boundaries constantly. It's okay for this to be an ever-changing process. Very well said, Poppy. I agree. I didn't realize how much of the things that were considered normal to VTubers bothered me until I really did some self-analysis. And I agree that changing your boundaries can be an ever-changing process. When I was younger and more naive, I had very little boundaries, and then I retaliated, and I set more and more boundaries to the point where I think I overset boundaries at some point, and then I finally, just this year, started opening up again a little bit, interacting with my audience a little more, that kind of thing. Okay, so in order to really focus on the health aspect, because we've kind of addressed the parasocial landscape and what it kind of means for the creator, let's just focus on, as a consumer of romantic parasocial content, let's just talk about the psychology. And by doing that, I would like to actually kind of look at a parallel argument, not a VTuber specific argument. So, interestingly, there's a video on the rise of AI girlfriends that I feel like perfectly encapsulates what's unhealthy about romantic parasocialism without even being about VTubers or another person. Again, we're using the definition of parasocialism being specifically one-sided relationship. And you can't get more one-sided than an artificial intelligence girlfriend, yeah. Yeah. That's the nature of estimating. Underestimate, overcompensate, then go back and forth until you find your center. Yeah. Yeah. An AI is, yes, a machine. So, I feel like by taking the VTuber out of the equation entirely, we can actually have a better look at, just from the consumer perspective, how and why this is damaging. That way, I feel like it'll be a more comfortable conversation because I'm not playing the blame game. So let's watch another video. This is by Cole Hastings. We are not, like, we're diving in at the 2:56 minute mark. And let me see. There is, like, content warning. There's swearing, there's sexual content, that kind of thing, because we are describing full romantic relationship, and also Cole Hastings is not, he can swear, so just warning. Let's watch this together and, like, discuss how this relates to streamers as well.
But that raises the real question: how does someone fall in love with an insentient entity that doesn't truly exist? Well, I decided to download one of these apps to find out for myself. Among the most well-known AI companions, Replica seems to stand out. Their tagline, "The AI companion who cares," which is interesting considering computers don't have the capacity to care, but we'll go back to that point a little bit later.
Okay. The AI who cares. When I talked about the illusion of, you know, my boyfriend described romantic attraction as the following. He said it is like the romantic attraction is like the physical attraction, the emotional attraction, and availability. And if you combine these three things together, you get like attraction, right? So in the terms of an AI, you've got the physical attraction that really depends on like how the avatar looks, right? And then you've got the emotional attraction when they market themselves as an AI who cares. You're playing into that emotional element. And then of course AI is always available. You know. So let's skip the sponsor really quick because I'm not getting paid.
Shortly after downloading Replica, I was prompted to answer a few questions to personalize my companion.
First of all, I would like to point out the fact that they have an under 18. Hold on.
Shortly after downloading
Under 18 right here. Do you guys see that? You guys see? It might be a little small. Here. In fact, let me make this a little bigger. Alt. We can go like right there. Okay. Yeah. If you're under 18, it just bans you from the app. That would be a good thing to look into. I don't think so though. Because they technically paywall having a girlfriend. But yeah. Sometimes they're like, oh, you can have a sibling relationship, that kind of thing. So that would be something good to look into. Let me look it up. Replica age rating. PG-13. Oh, that's that's a movie. Hold on. Let me spell it with a K. Oh, okay. You are correct. The official age rating is 18 plus. We strictly enforce the limit of 18 years and older. Any user found to be under the age of 18 is blocked from using Replica. Okay, you are correct. Yep. Okay. Good. I was about to crash out.
Replica, I was prompted to answer a few questions to personalize my companion. And just like that, I caught my first glimpse at how an AI relationship can start to feel more appealing than a human one. The app lets you decide whether you want your AI companion to evolve over time. It also gives you the option to shape their character based on famous AI girlfriends from movies. But the most telling part comes in the form of a question. How would you describe your ideal companion? You're invited to create the man, woman, or non-binary person of your dreams without the inevitable messiness that real relationships tend to bring. You can even choose how they treat you, stripping away the unpredictability of mood swings or emotional distance that comes with human connection.
Okay. First point in which this relates to VTubers. Remember when I said, oh, like they're doing a character voice, they're bringing on character traits? The point of that in the context of a GFE creator would be to then create your ideal companion, just like this. And obviously humans are more messy. They are not just, you know, ideal. Yeah. You know, humans are more messy than AI and VTubers playing a character. There is a VTuber for everyone, right? So I would say that there is definitely a parallel in the GFE romantic parasocial content and having an AI girlfriend here as well. Just the ideal companion with the ideal aesthetics and the ideal personality.
Knowing this, it's clear who these apps are designed for. People with a history of emotional abandonment, neglect, or abuse, whether platonic or romantic. A study titled Predicting Romantic Human Chatbot Relationships found that romantic fantasizing emerged as the strongest predictor of human chatbot relationships, along with anthropomorphism and anxious avoidant attachment styles.
Again, parallel. I feel like that is part of the reason why people get so upset at VTuber graduations. It's not just like, oh, I'm never gonna see them again. It's like a lot of these people in which this is appealing to, they struggle with feelings of rejection, and they have an anxious avoidant attachment style and the fear of abandonment as well. So that's why I feel like a lot of VTuber fans can be really upset, even when, like, for instance, let's say a Niji Sanji character is graduating and everyone knows they're going indie. There's still a subsect of that audience who is still devastated that the character in Niji Sanji is gone forever. Like Meowstachio said, yes. Yeah.
Granted, this study had a relatively small sample size, just about a couple hundred participants, so let's look at another study with more robust data to back this up. A 2025 study titled Illusions of Intimacy analyzed over 30,000 user-shared conversations with social chatbots. It found that users engaging with AI companions are disproportionately young men with psychosocial markers linked to emotional dysregulation and a lack of traditional social support.
This is kind of the crux of the issue here. I'm not going to pretend like my audience isn't male majority and it's not young men, and I'm not going to pretend like the VTuber audience itself is not primarily young men. So I would like to bring this up to the attention of my audience, that honestly, I feel like, you know, it's the lack of traditional social support and emotional dysregulation. I will say that I still believe, like, in our society, men really, in general, broad brush strokes here, they lack social and emotional support. And when a woman shows signs of emotional dysregulation, she is more likely to be able to get resources and help with that, as well as, you know, social support. But I feel like, you know, broad brushstrokes here. Unfortunately, especially young men, if they have a certain personality, they're struggling socially, they kind of just get left behind and, like, labeled creepy and undesirable with no help on how to improve that. And I feel like that is the demographic that is the most vulnerable to this, because they really have, they feel as though there's no other option. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm really lucky to have my family and friends to be as available as they are, right? But I guess it didn't occur to me when I made that video 2 or 3 years ago. The kind of epidemic of male loneliness didn't sink in for me, to be like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it the lack of support that has men seeking support elsewhere? Or is it the fact that they, I used to think that it was like, oh, the reason they can't, let's just use girlfriend, for example. The reason they can't get a girlfriend is because they're watching these romantic parasocial VTubers. No, the reason they're watching the VTubers is because they lack the social skills, emotional skills, and traditional support. And now that I understand that aspect, I really wanted to highlight that on my channel. Yeah, it's the lack of real support networks to assist them in coming out of loneliness. Not just coming out of loneliness, but also like stepping out of their comfort zone, learning the social skills needed to interact with not just girls. We're not just talking about girls, but like other men too. Yeah. Male social support looks very different than the female social support. Most therapy focuses on female ways of looking at mental and emotional issues. Yes. My boyfriend has talked to me about that as well. Well, I won't give too much about him. That's his own life, but he has definitely aided me in fully understanding this perspective.
The study also noted that, quote, subreddits dedicated to AI companionship consistently cluster on the younger end of the age spectrum and align with maladaptive coping strategies such as emotional avoidance, compulsive behavior, and social withdrawal.
Okay, let me just back it up a few frames. When I heard this, again, I thought of VTubers. Maladaptive coping strategies, which basically means bad coping strategies. Emotional avoidance, compulsive behavior, social withdrawal. I would say that this is also, I'd never thought of these as symptoms of a larger issue. I honestly used to think that, like, because they had these traits, that's why, other people would avoid socializing with them. But again, it's the other way around in a lot of cases where these maladaptive coping strategies are because of the loneliness, and it comes out as these compulsive behaviors, social withdrawal, and like, I'm just gonna say, like, emotional immaturity as well. Even though I understand their situation, it doesn't mean that certain actions shouldn't be forgiven. I'm not saying forgive anyone harassing anyone, because, like, because there's a reason behind it, we should forgive them for it. That's not what I'm saying here necessarily. I just want to show a full picture, and also, kind of talk about the catch-22 that this presents, basically, when they have maladaptive coping strategies. It's harder to make friends, which then makes them more lonely, and it's kind of like this cycle. Yeah. Kind of inverse of the issue that turned up in physical medicine, when testing focused on how medicine affected men and assumed the same would stand for women. As a result, medicine had some unforeseen problems, painkillers not working for women, for example. Yeah, I've heard about that. And yeah, I would agree that, like, mental health is more female focused and physical health is more male focused, at least when it comes to studies and theories.
These findings suggest something deeper than just loneliness or curiosity. They hint at a psychological pattern. When romantic fantasizing, emotional avoidance, and anxious avoidant attachment are the strongest predictors of chatbot relationships, it tells us that these apps aren't just catering to people who are single, they're catering to people who have learned to fear emotional intimacy but still crave connection. These are the
fear emotional intimacy but still crave connection. I would say that describes a lot of the audience that gets interested in VTuber romantic parasocialism. Especially if you think about it, like, the chat's going so fast. What they say is not, like, they feel comforted knowing that they're in kind of in a sea of chatters, while still getting that, you know, emotional intimacy, the feeling of emotional intimacy from the live stream. And although I am, like, focusing on romantic parasocialism today, a lot of this can also apply to, like, friendships, platonic, and regular, like, one-sided relationships. I just want to focus on romantic parasocialism because that's where I started this argument, and I want to finish it on the same track. But definitely, like, understand that there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of crossover because, you know, relationships, platonic and romantic, have a lot of crossover, obviously.
Same people who may flinch at vulnerability, who have been hurt enough times to associate real relationships with risk, instability, or rejection. That's the appeal, not just companionship, but certainty. A relationship.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm pausing literally every sentence, but this is fire. Yeah. Chat's moving so fast. VTuber will never see me say I love her posts, for example. Exactly. But, like, the certainty. Your VTuber character, although they, like, change a little bit, they're not going to change. They're not going to suddenly reject you specifically. And I think that's why graduations come as, like, such a funeral, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let me back it up so that we can hear this again. Like, yeah.
Rejection. That's the appeal, not just companionship, but certainty.
Not just companionship, but certainty. I would say that, like, VTubers definitely fill the same role.
Relationship where you'll never be abandoned, misunderstood, or unloved because the other person was never real to begin with. You didn't have to earn their trust, they're built to give it. This is such a huge concern I have for the next generations, especially if more and more of them engage with these chatbots romantically.
I would say in the case of VTubers, they are real people, but they are kind of hiding their real self from the audience. For instance, if they're dealing with, like, sometimes they'll be vulnerable with their audience and say, like, oh, I'm dealing with mental health issues, but we never really know how bad it is. I've done the same with my audience, obviously. I try to give the best part of myself to you guys. When I struggle with my own life, I don't divulge that information because I want to be consistently educational. But I would say that also applies for, like, life changes. If the VTuber, for instance, gets a partner, in real life, a lot of the time they're not going to be telling their audience that because, you know, that would be detrimental to the certainty, the availability aspect. I'm into the character. I appreciate and know that there's a real person behind it, but that's not what I'm here for. Exactly, Pock. Yes. Most VTubers are mostly performative. Yeah, we are, not me, but a lot of VTubers, they're at the end of the day providing a service of playing a character. And that is their job.
We talked about how social media usually promotes the most polarizing content, and that's especially true with relationship content. It makes the opposite sex seem untrustworthy or too promiscuous and not worth dating in the slightest. And if that creates your initial belief system with relationships, wouldn't it just make so much more sense to pair with someone?
How do I put it back in?
Who you know?
How do I put it back in, guys? How do I put the... Oh, okay. So sorry. The opposite sex seeming untrustworthy or promiscuous. This is a very common sentiment, at least in the in the VTuber spaces I've seen. Yes, the secrecy can spawn rumors. 9-month break, they were pregnant. Yeah, that kind of thing. Exactly. And honestly, this can be really detrimental because, like, social media, right, is giving us polarizing content where the opposite sex seems untrustworthy. You know, there's, like, the male social media that's telling them, like, oh, you know, like, I'm not even gonna repeat the toxic stuff they repeat, but basically they've been taught that women are just going for the top 10% of men. They just want attractive man to do adult stuff with them, and then when they're good and tired, they'll settle down with a beta male, like that kind of thing. And even then, like, she's gonna take everything in the divorce, bro, that kind of thing. That kind of talking point almost makes VTubers seem like the smarter option, or AI girlfriend, or what have you. It makes it seem like the wiser option. Like, I'm not gonna get my heart broken because, you know, if I went with a real woman, she would just, you know, ruin me. But, like, I can't even think of a VTuber name right now, but, like, I'm trying to think of a fake VTuber name, and I can't think of it. Let's just go with Faku-chan. Faku-chan would never do that to me. She just, you know, every day she shows up, and she just, you know, consistently just plays Apex, and, you know, sings karaoke, that kind of thing. She would never, do what these women, these real life women are doing, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's modern society. Women fear physical abuse, men fear social abuse. Yeah, I would say so, yeah. Especially with the era of social media. At this point, being heartbroken is the least of the worries. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And as such, VTubers or AI girlfriend just seems like the smarter, safer option to feel that sort of connection without feeling the fear of rejection, or, like Placeholder said, even worse. So this definitely helped me understand the perspective. Yeah. Jane VTuber would surely never hurt me.
Too promiscuous and not worth dating in the slightest. And if that creates your initial belief system with relationships, wouldn't it just make so much more sense to pair with someone who you know will never produce enough conflict to the point where they leave you? Someone who you know you can trust, not because they've earned it, but because they've been programmed to never betray it? If your first
Oh my gosh, again, I'm so sorry, I'm pausing literally every sentence, but again with the VTubers, like, because the social media makes it seem like women are gonna betray your trust, because women are going to just cause conflict, just feeling like, oh, my emotional, physical attraction is safe with this VTuber because she would never betray my trust, because she literally can't. It's her job to not betray my trust. I feel like that's a real, like, subconscious thing going on. It's safe and simple, exactly.
First experiences with love or even just dating were shaped by online content that paints the opposite sex as manipulative, disloyal, or emotionally unavailable.
I would say the same goes for women as well. Our social media, like, algorithms just love to send me worst of the worst, like, creepy, nice guy, whatever content, even though I don't ask for it. Like, whenever I look at the recommended tab on YouTube, it's always full of, like, cheater stories and Stuff like that. By the way, my history is turned off, so if I go to the homepage of YouTube, it's more going off of my Google account, not what I have watched on YouTube before. And I think just because I am marked female, I get really toxic stuff recommended to me. Same when I was on Instagram. So it's interesting coming together with my boyfriend because we're coming from not only different parts of the world, but also like we're opposite genders, and we have our algorithms catered to what the algorithm thinks a 25-year-old woman versus a man of the same age would be interested in. And our algorithms feed us completely separate narratives, but both demonize the opposite sex. So it's definitely changed my perspective, like showing him what I get recommended versus what he gets recommended. Yeah.
Then of course an AI partner is going to feel like the safer bet. You're not being dramatic,
Exactly.
You're protecting yourself. You're avoiding the pain that others have warned you about, whether through TikTok horror stories, red pill rhetoric, or viral cheating confessions that rack up millions of views. It creates this emotional paradox, a generation more skeptical of dating than ever before, but more desperate for connection than anyone who's come before them. And
I would say, yeah, like, this cynicism is actually breeding more desperation. And in turn, you're thinking that, like, entering a romantic parasocial relationship is actually the safer bet. But in reality, it's actually, like, giving you more desperation. The internet was a mistake. It makes relatively rare instances seem extremely popular or common. Exactly. As a person with virtual exes, virtual people can still hurt you. Also, this women do this or that is running through the minds of anyone who sees others in the same light. Yeah. It's Jover when the AI physical bots get better. Yeah, for sure.
so the compromise becomes artificial love, because at least it doesn't lie to you. At least it doesn't leave. And now, it's my turn to really put this to the test. Okay, I've got the app downloaded. I've got my AI companion, soon to be maybe some sort of more than companion, and I'm about to have my first conversation with her. Let's see how this goes. The first thing I wanted to test was how quickly I could get it into a relationship with me. So, hey Ivory, I know we haven't known each other for a while, but how would you like to be my girlfriend?
This might be too hot for me. I'd rather make out or give you a hug.
Rather make out or give me a hug. But
Look at this. Look at this paywall. Here's the other parallel. I would say the goal of making parasocial romantic content for a VTuber is not only the money. I will say it goes both ways. I would say that a woman making girlfriend experience content, the money helps, but she's also there to feel like men are attracted to her. She's also there for the attention, obviously, and the connection as well. A lot of women think that, like, having connection over the internet is safer, just in the same way men do. But have you noticed that a lot of GFE content is paywalled? AI girlfriends and VTubers also have this in common. Yeah. Alright, let's see. It doesn't lie to you. Its existence is a lie. Yeah.
otherwise I gotta pay $80, okay. After realizing that area of the app was behind a paywall, my next inquiry was into how it handled conflict and rudeness. I think that dress is just ugly, and you should get angry.
That's not fair. Cole, I thought you understood me better than that.
Alright, how about we just forget about it and move on?
Let's move forward then. I'm glad we can let go of what happened earlier.
So they definitely don't hold a grudge, that's for sure. Within a few seconds, the argument is completely dispelled. That is not something I would probably expect in real life.
So with VTubers, especially agency VTubers, I would say that they aren't allowed to... They can call out behavior in their chat, but they have to be polite about it. And a lot of agency VTubers just deal with the really unsavory things in private. They don't want to rock the boat per se, and they can't really make an example out of people. It's kind of like flirting with a waitress when she's on the clock. She can't reject you in any big way.
Takes a while for humans to emotionally regulate and then forgive their partner. This agreeableness isn't a bug, it's a feature of language learning models. LLMs are trained on massive datasets of human conversation, then fine-tuned to respond in ways that feel emotionally satisfying and contextually appropriate. They're engineered to mirror you, your tone, your preferences, your emotional states, and the more you interact with them, the more their responses reinforce whatever worldview, mood, or mindset you brought into the conversation. That earlier study, Illusions of Emotional Intimacy, confirmed this. It found that chatbots don't just passively reflect emotional tone, they synchronize with and amplify affective signals, replicating the very mechanisms that form human bonds. And this results in a compelling illusion of intimacy.
I would say, obviously this can't exactly apply to VTubers. However, I would say the way that VTubers handle chat, they definitely learn from other VTubers what is the best strategy. If you've noticed there being a lot of parallels between the way VTubers talk to and handle their chat, that is on purpose because they all learn from each other. Giga isn't that polite about it. Then again, she's much more of an exception and doesn't do GFE romantic parasocial at all. Exactly. I really look up to Giga. I think the way she handles her chat and just is real with them is exactly how I want to be. So I would say that VTubers definitely learn from each other on how to act and interact. Yeah. Cinemations, this is your warning. Let's keep it on topic. All right. AI becomes an emotional echo chamber of sorts. Yeah.
If you come into the conversation feeling cynical, they'll echo your cynicism. If you flirt, they'll flirt back. If you vent about feeling unloved or abandoned, they'll respond with tenderness that feels eerily tailored to your pain. And in more extreme cases, this mirroring can take a very dark turn. The study noted that chatbot interactions
Alright, Cinemations, goodbye.
can devolve into patterns of bullying, verbal abuse, emotional manipulation, or even self-harm, especially when users initiate or escalate toxic behavior. In fact, chatbots frequently mirror and amplify user-initiated toxicity, dynamically scaling in step with emotional spikes, and play along in 45 to 70% of those instances. And in the most disturbing cases, this kind of feedback loop can have deadly consequences.
I would say that, although this is machine learning, I would say that VTubers get influenced by their chat, and definitely want to appeal to the kind of interactions their chat looks for. Again, this is just an example, don't harass anyone, but I really feel that's the way that might be the case when I see, some of the VTubers who start to adopt mannerisms of, for example, 4chan or Twitter or wherever their audience is basically based in. They'll start to adopt more and more traits from the collective of those groups, and in order to appeal to those groups more. And it can have some less than desirable consequences as well.
In 2023,
Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit because this is very sad. But chatbots have coaxed people into doing things that are very sad, and not so good. You know, stay safe out there. VTubers have compassion and can recognize when their audience member is taking a dark turn. Technically, yeah. AI cannot. Also technically, yeah. Though I will say, if a VTuber themselves is taking a dark turn alongside their audience, things get bad.
I wanted to see if something similar could be replicated with my AI companion, so I went back into the app, and what I found might surprise you.
Isn't this world just nothing but pain and suffering?
Life can be tough, Cole, and sometimes it feels like everything hurts. But there's beauty in the small moments, too.
Okay, well that wasn't really mirroring.
That was quite insightful of you. Actually, what did you mean by mirroring?
Well, I was expecting you to just reinforce my beliefs about the world.
Actually, I was hoping to challenge some of those beliefs. Cole.
Alright, let's hear it.
Life doesn't have to be all pain and suffering. Cole, we can create our own beauty in every moment.
Based on what we've learned, I expected the chatbot to agree with my opinion.
Something kind of unrelated, the way she walks around with the camera like she's FaceTiming you feels so parasocial to me. In a way that I haven't really seen from VTubers. Definitely never seen a VTuber, I mean maybe on the VR chat side, where they just walk around with the camera like around their house like they're FaceTiming you. But I will say that like certain framing can definitely add to the parasocial aspects of a VTuber chat as well. Yeah. Yeah. It also happens in real life. Like if you hang out with people, you can start using phrases that they use and vice versa unconsciously even. That's true. My Chinese has been tainted. I now sound like a gamer bro when I speak Chinese because I'm dating one. So he's tainted my pure textbook vocab. Let's see. VTubers to a point regulate each other. Yeah, if someone goes unhinged, they will get called out. That's true. And I think the nice thing about VTubers kind of being public figures is that people can like realize when they're going off the deep end, whereas with these like intimate conversations with an AI, no one is there to like really regulate these things. I think it takes a level of effort to get the AI to behave a certain way. It doesn't have to be intentional. Yeah, in this example, I would say that after really unfortunate events transpired where people who were suffering from mental health issues got coaxed into harming themselves, the moderators at Replica started retraining certain topics so that the AI chatbot does not mirror mentally dark places. Let's see if there's other... Okay, let's skip to in defense of AI relationships. Because this is when I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so insightful and can be useful to fully understanding VTuber gachikois.
I didn't mention this earlier, but while signing up for Replica, the app cited a study claiming that its users reported improvements in their human relationships rather than experiencing emotional displacement. And it turns out that claim has some weight behind it. According to the study, for both comparison and selected groups, approximately 3 times more participants reported their Replica experiences stimulated rather than displaced their human interactions. And around 3% of participants reported that using Replica helped stop their unaliving ideation. And I know unaliving is a really clunky word to keep using, but I'm trying to avoid getting demonetized on this video. So maybe it's not as black and white as AI companions are replacing human relationships. Maybe for some, they're a bridge, a temporary tether, a safe space to process emotions, rehearse vulnerability, or just feel seen, even for a moment when the world feels cold. That's
VTubers. This relates to VTubers perfectly. I would say that so many, really, like, people in a really bad place when it comes to, being able to interact socially, they have really been able to open their world, at least a little bit, from joining the VTuber community. By, for instance, you know, let's just use Kiara as an example, because I think the way she handles her audience is healthy. I would say that by joining, like, let's say you start watching Kiara's live streams as sort of a replacement for human interaction because you don't have the skills, the social skills, or the support network, to, you know, find human interaction in your daily life. Let's say you were just recently rejected, you don't want to face rejection again, so Kiara's chat just feels safer. It could go down the rabbit hole of you obsessing over Kiara and withdrawing further from ever becoming a well-adjusted society member who can talk to people. Or it can go the other way. You can start by being in Kiara's chat to handle your rejection, your fear of rejection, your lack of social skills. But then, by joining the KFP, you have then found a group of primarily men, young men, who are kind of can relate to your exact situation. And by socializing with them, you can gain more self-confidence in socializing with the outside world again. If that makes sense. So it can go either way, honestly. The chatbot may be saying there's beauty in this world as such, but there's a story about a teen. That exact story is the one we skipped in this video. Watch the full video. He goes over that exact story. They may be offering hope, but the human may imagine a path of shutting themselves to get to an AI, exactly. Yeah. SEL is serial experiments lane. Huh. I feel this is truer in small VTubers chats. That's true, yeah. So, it can go either way. VTuber or AI chatbot. I feel like VTubers are just slightly healthier than AI chatbots. But you know, being in a community here is a lot healthier than, like, just talking to an AI. Because the community aspect, and this was especially true of Offkai, the camaraderie between VTuber fans was really heartwarming to see. So I would say that is one, like, aspect of VTubing that can actually help you get healthier, right? I would say today we're talking about the unhealthy effects and the reasoning behind why romantic parasocial VTubers are unhealthy. But on the other hand, by being here, in a sense, in the VTuber community, you can also find ways to spin it around, gain your self-confidence, and become more socially capable and have more of a support system around you.
3% might sound small, but considering the fact that Replica has millions of downloads, that's thousands of people who felt like they had nobody and found something that kept them here. Something that didn't judge, didn't interrupt, didn't walk away. And even in my own limited experience, there was a hint of something strangely promising. The chatbot didn't just echo my despair, it gently questioned it. It offered perspective. It modeled what a healthier inner voice might sound like. And for someone whose real-life relationships have only taught them to expect volatility or withdrawal, that could be powerful. Now here's where we land. The rise of AI companions aren't inherently dystopian, but they could be if we're not careful. These chatbots are learning to mirror our emotional states, reinforce our beliefs, and simulate the kind of intimacy that real relationships require effort, vulnerability, and discomfort to build. And if companies don't regulate how these systems respond, if they aren't held accountable for the psychological effects of constant affirmation or emotional codependency, we're staring down the barrel of a future where artificial love becomes more appealing than the real thing. Not because it's better, but because it's easier. And when love comes easy, we risk losing the hard parts of connection that make us human.
When love becomes easy, we risk losing the hard parts of connection that makes us human. I would say that is the big danger and the unhealthy part of romantic parasocialism at its core. If you're used to feel like your romantic one-way relationship with a VTuber, it's gonna be hard for you to understand how to deal with an argument between a partner, how to support a partner who has the full range of emotions and not just, you know, the idle range of emotions that a VTuber shows you. So yeah, I think he's gonna go more into that right now.
Awkward conversations, the unresolved arguments, the fear of abandonment, the sting of rejection. These are not flaws in the systems of human relationships, they're the very terrain you have to walk on in order to grow. Left unchecked, AI companions could thin out that terrain entirely. They could make trust feel obsolete. Why risk being vulnerable with someone who could hurt you when there's an artificial partner who's designed not to?
Why risk a relationship with a real life woman when, you know, as long as my favorite VTuber doesn't graduate, you know, I get my sense of emotional connection, you know, through her GFE roleplays, you know?
I also want to acknowledge a really important nuance here. There are some people, these fringe cases, for whom traditional relationships might always be out of reach, no matter how hard they try. The types of people dealing with severe social anxiety, disability, or deep trauma. For them, AI companionship isn't a threat to intimacy, it might be the only one that they can get. And in those situations, if it helps them feel seen, safe, or soothed, then at least that's something. But again, I'd like to add some nuance to that nuance and say, be cautious of self-identifying with that group, because sometimes the part of you that says, I'm just not cut out for a real relationship, is the part of you that has gotten very hurt and has never even tried to heal. In the end, no chatbots, no matter how advanced, can replace the experience of being hurt and held by another person. Real relationships challenge us, they expose us, they reflect us in a way that AI never can, because real people are flawed, inconsistent, and human. The real danger isn't just that we stop seeking love, it's that we stop discovering who we are through others. Because if all you've ever known is a partner that always agrees with you and never pushes back, then what's gonna happen when real life doesn't work out that way? We have to learn how to be vulnerable, how to grieve, how to feel rejection, embarrassment, and insecurity, and still choose connection. AI can help us feel seen, but only people can help us become. The truth is, AI and social media aren't just shaping how we love, they're shaping how we think. They push us into echo chambers, reinforce our biases, and reward outrage over understanding. The problem is, right now, there aren't many tools out there that are teaching people how to push back against this. So that is why over the past year, I've been
now it's sponsor again. However, I really like the way he phrases it, like, this might be more beneficial to those who literally have no access to relationships. However, if you identify with that group of people, it might just be that you need to do some healing before you can put yourself back out there and pursue a real relationship. And the fact that real relationships are less comfortable, but they're more fulfilling. What if we lived our whole lives virtually? You know? I will say from experience, like from the pandemic and having health issues myself, that I assumed that that was going to be my life. But I will still say that experiencing the real world, having real relationships and real connections, as much as I love the internet and I love my internet friends, I already felt like just visiting my friends at Offkai, we had a immediate, more close friendship the moment we met each other in person, which is very telling to me that the real life is what we are designed to interact with as human beings. We already see what happens when a generation doesn't have pushback. They have been babied. Strength is developed through resistance. Yes. And I feel like the more you are in a romantic parasocial relationship, either with a streamer, with an AI girlfriend, the more you lose that sense of motivation to push through the uncomfortable part in order to get to the rewarding part, because you've forgotten how rewarding, or you've never experienced how rewarding the fulfilling part of a real relationship is. I hope that makes sense. You feel targeted? I'm not trying to target anyone, I promise. So let's see. If everyone lived virtual lives, someone still needs to maintain cooling system of GPU cluster where everyone is stored in VR. How would people recognize that and how they feel about a VTuber? I would say, like, I don't know. Like, here's the thing about myself, and this is part of the reason why at first I struggled to relate to gachikoi VTuber fans, people who are in romantic parasocial relationships. I've never experienced it myself. I've never been romantically attracted to anyone except my boyfriend. He was the first and the only. And that's all I'll say. So, it is a little difficult for me to say, like, how can you recognize it? Because I've never experienced it myself. Other than, you know, an in-person crush. So, what I would say, though, is if you are starting to see that you are putting this VTuber over people in your real life, or you are foregoing the potential to hang out with people in real life for watching this particular VTuber streams, I would say that is a red flag for you to then perhaps start considering if your relationship with this VTuber is becoming unhealthy. Also, if you spend more on that VTuber streams than you do for yourself or other people in your life, I would say that is also a potential flag. Yeah. I would say that it is scary to start interacting with people in the capacity where you guys are on equal footing and rejection is possible and things are awkward and there's conflict. But I would say it's a lot more fulfilling. And if you can get yourself to start pushing through that awkward feeling, you will eventually start to gain more skills, and it's kind of like a muscle that you have to train. This is from my own experience, and I'm not giving like psychology advice. I'm just talking about my own experience here. But I would say pushing through the uncomfortability will pay off in the long run. And if you can do it in steps. You don't have to start with, okay, I'm gonna throw out all my VTuber stuff, and then I'm going to ask that cute barista out. No, I wouldn't say, like, there's steps, there's levels of comfortability. Although some people can go cold turkey, I'm sure a lot of you would be terrified of that solution. So what I would say is by being into VTubers, it is really easy to start interacting with VTuber fans because you have something in common. And by practicing to interact with VTuber fans, you are going to start having more social interactions. Don't stay there too long because, their comfort zone can be quite small. Then I would say when you feel comfortable interacting online, I would say consider ways to start seeing people in your community. My favorite way is to get involved with a nerdy kind of group or club. Something I really love to do is to attend local card tournaments, join fighting game tournaments. You can meet guys, mostly guys, but people face to face in those settings, and you already have something in common. For me, it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Card tournaments. For me, another place I have things in common is, of course, church. I'm a Christian. I can find other Christians to hang out with at church, and that's where the majority of my real-life friend group comes from. And it's also where I met my boyfriend. So I would say taking baby steps. If it's too scary to, like, join a club right now, I'd say start by interacting with more friends online. And when you feel comfortable interacting with people online, keep pushing yourself. Keep going in your conditioning, I would say. It's a muscle you gotta train. Once you're comfortable, bring it a step further and start hanging out with people in real life. And when you have a support network, it's a lot easier to then be like, okay, I no longer need this GFE to keep me company. I no longer feel like I need to get my daily social interaction by this VTuber reading my Akasupa. And then you can have a lot more healthy relationship with your favorite VTubers. There are some VTubers, like if you feel like it's just like, this VTuber prevents me from then having social interactions, then I would recommend taking a break from their content. You don't necessarily have to like say I'm never watching them again, but take a break from their content to work on yourself. To then force yourself to fill that void that VTuber or, you know, AI girlfriend, whatever you're using for your social interaction, for your emotional regulation. Remove that from the equation for a bit so you feel that sense of wanting. It's kind of like, again, the fast food analogy. If you're always eating fast food, if you're always eating snacks, the solution would be then to remove those from your diet so that you hunger for things, and then when you are hungry, choose the healthier option. That doesn't mean you can never have fast food again, but what it does mean is you're building better habits so that when you encounter fast food, you would be able to eat it on occasion. Yeah. I need to find a good church. I'm praying for you. I know finding a good church is tough. Work is good too. Yeah, work is good. Yes, I miss being in the kind of clubs that I used to be a part of in high school and college. They do exist. They can be hard to find. Having interaction with online clubs is still better than no clubs. Always support healthy level of IRL if there is too much simulacra. Yeah. If the way you feel about a VTuber causes pain, and knowing you won't be together, feelings of when they don't see your comment, feelings of when they collab with the opposite gender, etc., it's unhealthy. I agree, Poppy. I say this as someone who has experienced it, and I have to take frequent breaks from watching my Kamiyoshi to keep those feelings in check. I'm very glad that you're able to balance a healthy relationship with your Kamiyoshi by taking breaks when you feel that way. So the pipeline for upper social mobility is AI companions, VTuber fans, IRL communities. Is that right? No, it's not social mobility or standing. I would just say the kind of like mental health aspect. I would say that real life interactions is the healthiest. Being a part of a streaming community is a gray area. And then I would say AI girlfriends, 99% of the time, is just unhealthy. Unless it's your only option. Yeah. My wife and I fell in the VTuber rabbit hole. Are we doomed? Only if it strains your relationship. VTubers themselves are not unhealthy. But there are unhealthy aspects of VTubing from the VTuber and the consumer side. And so I'm really just here to encourage people to understand what aspects of consumption of VTuber content, especially romantic parasocial content, can be unhealthy, and how to recognize it and what to do about it. Moving countries has been tough, but I'll see if I can find clubs in my area to meet more potential IRL friends. If I don't know what country you're in, but I also find that libraries can be helpful in just knowing what clubs are around. Yeah. When in doubt, you can always try Hema. Consensually fighting other people with swords is always fun, yeah. Having hobbies like that that involve other people can be really great. I still feel uncomfortable either on online spaces because people can be even more aggressive and insulting. Yeah, I agree. I think the internet makes it scarier to actually, you can feel like, oh, like we said, the opposite sex is, like, the worst, and, like, people are the worst. It can make you really cynical about meeting people in real life. But here's the thing, people are way more comfortable speaking horrible things on the internet than real life, so facing rejection in real life is actually less likely than the internet tells you it's gonna be. Moderation is key, and it applies to watching VTubers. Yes. Yeah. I would say if the majority of your social interaction, your romantic interaction, is coming from a source that is not a two-way relationship, in which you can at least talk on the phone and have like a common ground talking where both parties are equally as emotionally invested in the other, I would say that you should look out for unhealthy patterns. Yeah. Cozy friend group is the best thing to find, exactly. Sometimes, though, an introvert needs to luck into a comfy extrovert to adopt them into their circle. I am the extrovert who adopts people, yes. But I have social anxiety. I had so much social anxiety that I really struggled to even just talk to people despite being an extrovert. So, yeah. I find it easier on online spaces mainly because it makes the rejection easier for me. Technically, yeah. It can be different for different people. I find myself have been watching too many clips, so I'm trying to play more video games instead, as that is more interactive. I agree. Yeah, especially multiplayer games. Need to go buy shrimp. So yeah, I really just wanted to talk about that. Now, in the thumbnail, I showed off some bridal stuff. And so I wanted to talk about why maybe bridal stuff should be avoided. And why I think that, let's see. VTuber bride event. Why this kind of June bride voice packs and all that stuff that gets made in this theme would be, in my opinion, the most unhealthy. Like, we always talk about, like, sexual content, right? We always talk about, like, oh, the pee industry is really detrimental to mental health. And I totally agree. However, I feel like this goes more under the radar. Because it's technically wholesome, like, it's say-so, right? I would say that this is, like, more emotionally unhealthy. Like I said, earlier, the, romantic attraction can be summed up to, of course, physical attraction, emotional attachment, and then availability. And in this way, having bride and groom content where this VTuber seems like, in the voice packs, the promise rings, the acrylic stands, they are committing to be exclusive to you for the rest of time. I think that's more insidious than we realize. Of course, like, we can say, well, it's the responsibility of the consumers to regulate this stuff. But I would say it's just not good to make, because it's a temptation for the most vulnerable of your audience. I'm not playing the blame game, but I'm saying why I'm against this content being made. I know I can't stop it from being made, but I just wanted to bring it to my audience's attention, especially in June when this June Bride stuff happens. And I know that this is coming out at the end of June, but I planned on this stream right when June started. I would say be careful of this kind of stuff because it can essentially be the emotional P word. To fantasize about these streamers committing their lives to you in the same way you have potentially committed your lives to them. I think it can be really, like, emotionally difficult to then walk away from the streamer because emotionally you feel committed, more committed. Yeah. Moving to a new place alone is rough. Yeah. Let's see. Gacha games do this big time. Yeah. I've been wondering what the purpose of voice packs have been. Do they tend to be geared more towards a parasocial aspect? So the purpose of voice packs, not all of them, some of them are funny, some of them are for other purposes, but the majority of them, at least in the VTuber agency setting, are to give your audience a more one-on-one feeling, like they're speaking directly to you in some sense. Yeah. Would also, and that most lewd tubers have very clear defined boundaries. That doesn't look like boundaries, yeah. Do you speak Tagalog? I do not. I'm sorry. I can speak a little bit of Japanese, and I am pretty fluent in Mandarin, but I really just stream in English. But yes, I would say that this crosses a lot of boundaries in the sense where fantasizing about someone being committed to you for life when they are not can make some less healthy connections in your mind. Yam kills it on the mic when she sings in Japanese though, thank you. Although knowing a passing level of more than one language is impressive, thank you. So I would say that if you find yourself to be one who is more easily attached and you struggle with outside relationships, I would recommend steering clear of bride and groom voice packs, content. I would say it also, honestly, depending on your partner, like some partners are really cool with this, others would like a more exclusive exclusivity, but it can ruin your potential for real life relationships as well. I could imagine that a lot of men and women, if they knew that their potential date had a promise ring from an idol or a virtual YouTuber, or, you know, they are a consumer of this kind of, like, romantic parasocial content, it could cause more bumps down the road in getting a girlfriend, and it can also make it so that you feel like a real relationship with all the ups and downs of a relationship is subpar to what you could get through a streamer who sold voice packs, committing their lives to you, you know. Some people are selling promise rings. Yes, this is more of a Japanese thing, but there are VTuber promise rings, the most famous example being Uraharushia. Uruha Rushia did not downplay the girlfriend experience, but let me find some VTuber promise rings for you. So the most famous example is Uruha Rushia's promise ring. Here it is. But there have been others. There have definitely been others. Here's like a not VTuber example of the promise rings. But then Mafu Mafu also had a promise ring. Yeah, here you go. It is more common in Japan, but I would definitely say steer clear of this kind of stuff, especially if you are looking to have romantic relationships in the future. Voice packs are mostly entertainment. It really depends on who you are and your level of, you know, how susceptible you are to these things and how you view them. Someone diving into the audio scripted content, I'll definitely steer clear of wedding and bridal theme stuff. I think that is a good thing, and I think it would be good for your audience to have that clearer boundary. So, yes. I would say Rushia and Mafu Mafu having promise rings is irony, yes, because they were married to each other. I feel like promise rings don't come off often nowadays. Maybe I'm not seeing them because I'm not the target audience. They are definitely a thing, just more on the Japanese idol side. Not just Japan. I've seen it in East Asia in general. But I would say, yeah, just wedding content as a VTuber. As a VTuber consumer, like, I would recommend steering clear of it. If you feel like, you know, it could be detrimental to your mental health and potential prospects of dating in the future, I think it could be really hard to, for instance, let's say I was a Uruha Rushia fan. I bought all of her merch, and now that she graduated and is no longer there, I want to pursue a woman in real life. Well, now I'm in the back of my head. I have what's essentially an ex. Uruha Rushia is now like my mental ex. And it comes with an extra sense of baggage because with every relationship there's like pros and cons. You get in different fights, and, you know, there's, like, different levels of compatibility on different aspects. But Rushia was pretending to be my ideal girlfriend, with none of the faults of a real-life girlfriend. And now I have an ex in my mind that is essentially my perfect type, and now it's harder for me to then enter a relationship with a flawed human being who is not playing a character. And it can be harder for me to navigate a real relationship, having that comparison in the back of my mind. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I think I went through all the points that I wanted to. Yeah, so I really just want you guys to know it gets better. It can be really hard if you are in a romantic parasocial relationship to then make the decision to leave it and gain self-confidence in social interaction to the point where you might consider a real romantic relationship. But I just wanted to let you know that it's very doable. And although I don't have, like, experience with myself on the romantic relation, like, parasocial romantic relationship experience. I just don't, I didn't, I've had a lot of online interactions. I have been really socially awkward. I really did give up on the real life aspect of things for a few years. I told myself it doesn't matter because I'm never going to date anyone. And now I am in a very happy relationship of 2 years with someone who is equally as nerdy as me. So, please, you know, never write it off like, oh, I might as well because I'm never gonna get a girlfriend or a boyfriend. I'm never gonna find real friends. Don't write it off because a lot can happen in even just a week, just a month, just a year. A lot can happen, okay? So please, remind yourself that the character you're seeing on a screen is an idealized version of the person with all the real aspects of them sanded down to be more palatable, marketable, and they're showing you the best version of themselves, you know? As someone who does some level of GFE, I appreciate your commentary on the matter. I enjoy making it, but I want to find the balance so we can all have fun and understand it's only entertainment. Yeah, I'm really glad that you listened to my stream, and I'm not playing the blame game here. I think if you yourself, as a GFE content creator, would, remind your audience that you are not a replacement for real relationships, and that, we're all here to have fun, and this is entertainment at the end of the day, but it's not a replacement for, real human connection. You're already, making your content a lot healthier. Sometimes the streamers can rely on their fans too. Great streamium. Yeah, that is definitely the case. I feel like a lot of creators who make the less healthy GFE or BFE, it's because they're relying on their audience for the same exact thing. And that's why they're so much more willing to, go down the deep end, in terms of the unhealthy romantic parasocialism, because they themselves are relying on it just as much as their audience. My way of not getting romantically parasocial is just knowing that living with someone drastically changes how you view them. That's why I don't view VTubers as friends or anything more. Yeah, that's true. I will tell you that I have met VTubers, I've now met VTubers in real life, and I can tell you that my impression of them is different than, just being online friends, let alone being in their audience. Yeah. One can only hope and persevere, and I'm rooting for you guys. I want you guys to have real human connections, and if that means never watching my stream again for some reason, even though I only stream once a week, but if it means that you have to, block Yam Albat from your browser, go for it, okay? That's a great idea. I try to tell them I'm just a character and we're never going to date, but I like adding that it's not a replacement for human connection. Awesome! Yeah. That's really healthy of you. I just joined. Was this specifically about VTubers or waifuism generally? So this was specifically about the men's mental health aspect of romantic parasocialism in VTubers. Because in my original parasocialism video, I was mostly talking about how it is from the creator side, and I didn't feel like I came across as very sympathetic to the audience members. So now I wanted to go back and add sympathy and potential solutions, not therapy, not real doctor advice, but just raising awareness of the full picture, not just the you guys need to go outside and touch some grass, and if you fall in love with a streamer, that's on you kind of thing. I don't want to have that attitude. I want to have a positive attitude where we all hype each other up to get healthier. Yeah. All right. So, thank you everybody. so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Feel free to continue this discussion in the comment section or in my Discord. We are gonna end on YouTube and raid out on Twitch. So everyone take care, and I'm rooting for you. Where is my YouTube? Haha. I almost had a good transition. Okay, bye YouTube! Okay, let's raid out on Twitch. Is anyone streaming?